There was a time when I would think that this Predator game was one of the worst games ever. Well, Famidaily has shown me the depths of gameplay depravity, so I can't say Predator is one of the worst games ever. It is, however, a pretty bad game. Predator, of course, is one of the best-known action films of the 1980s. It's about a commando raid into Central America that encounters an alien monster. The Famicom Predator game is loosely based on an MSX game, and after being reworked once for the Famicom, it was also heavily modified when it was ported to the NES. The Famicom Predator is more difficult and has the levels rearranged compared to the NES version. It starts with what the game calls Big Mode, an auto-scrolling segment featuring very large characters and no background. The reason for this is that your character and the Predator aren't sprites, they're background tiles. So when you jump, the game's actually scrolling. It's an interesting way to try to get PC Engine style big sprites on the Famicom, but the characters are so limited it doesn't feel worth it. In Big Mode, you can just jump and shoot. Various tiny objects like these orbs will float in and you have to shoot them out of the way. Sometimes the things that you shoot will leave behind a power-up. They float towards the right-hand side of the screen, so you have to go forward to collect them. The power-ups always change out your gun. They have limited ammunition, though in practice I only ran out once while I was playing. The weapons you can get are the boomerang shot, which goes out in a straight line through enemies and returns to you. A machine gun, so you don't have to press fire over and over again. A smaller bullet that as you collect additional power-ups becomes a spread shot. And a grenade launcher that destroys everything on the screen when it hits something. The thing that bothered me the most was that in Big Mode you can't pause. That became a problem when I had an assistant who wanted to point out all of the targets on the screen for me. At the end of the auto-scroller you'll get attacked by the Predator. It'll be invisible a lot of the time, but still be something that you can hit. The Predator attacks by making Predator heads appear around it. As an effect, it just does not look good. Shoot the Predator enough times, and you advance to the stages that are the real heart of the game. The side-scrolling stages always have you start with no weapon. You're stuck punching until you can locate something. You can't duck and punch, which means you can't defeat a lot of enemies. And these green soldiers that shoot their guns will always get free hits on you. The side-scrolling stages aren't actually that long. They only take maybe a minute or two to play. Your goal is always to just reach a door at the end of the stage and then press up. And stages are rarely more than 5 or 6 screens across. Sometimes there's multiple vertical levels where you can go up or down depending on which way the finger's pointing. But if there's no finger pointing down, going off the bottom is death. The visual design on these stages is often a problem, especially on the caves where it looks like these things are edges, but you only collide with the tops of platforms, so you can just walk right through things to your death. A weird trick that might help you in the game is that you can ride on top of enemies. There doesn't seem to be a lot of reason to do this, though. On the stages, you can collect a machine gun, whose biggest advantage is just letting you take a shot. You can also crouch and fire with it, so you can take out those pesky small enemies finally. The laser gun's a bit more powerful. It can blow up certain blocks, and that makes it necessary to pick up to complete certain stages. The grenades can also blow up blocks, but they are a much worse weapon to use. The arc is pitiful, the delay before they go off is annoying, but you can set them down at your feet. Keep an eye out for this icon while you have a weapon. It'll drop you back down to punching. Other things that you can find on stages are these squares that restore 1 life point, this big square that restores all your life, and the always handy 1-ups. The level design in those side-scrolling stages makes me think that Predator was probably someone's first attempt at level design. It features a lot of the bad ideas that everybody uses when they first start out, like forcing you to double back all the time. I hope you like moving in zigzag patterns, because Predator's stages require a lot of that. There's also sections that require that you take damage, or run through a gauntlet of enemies one way and then have to run back through it. It's things that wouldn't be bad once, But Predator seems to rely on these basic tricks. At the end of every 4 side-scrolling stages, you face the Predator again, and he's really boring. He just jumps up and down and takes shots when he lands. It takes a ton of damage to defeat the Predator, so much so that I thought I wasn't doing any damage to it at all. I tried to just go out the door and it wouldn't let me until it was destroyed. There doesn't seem to be any variation between the Predator's appearance at the end of these stages either. The one that you fight at the end of Stage 4 feels exactly the same as the one you fight at the end of Stage 8. Beat the Predator and get to the exit, and you go to the next big mode. And that's important because big mode is where the continues go to. So basically the continue is only good every 5 stages, and it always drops you into an auto-scroller. There are a grand total of 37 stages in the Famicom version of Predator, 7 big mode stages, and 30 side-scrollers. As I mentioned, those side-scrolling stages can be pretty short. Predator's a pretty bad game, but I can't bring myself to really work up some rage over it. Big mode might be clunky, but it's also kind of ambitious. And the platforming might be floaty, and the stages not particularly well designed, but there's also nothing really horrifyingly wrong with it like we've seen in some games. My feelings on Predator can be summed up as, well, at least they tried.